I, I know we are towards the end, and I'm sure everybody is now keen to, call off the day. Uh, but since I've been asked, I will say a few words. I'm particularly honored. My name is being associated with Professor Sanghi. Uh, as Ravindra said, that Sanghi was a plant breeder by training. By much of his career, he opted to work with the farmers, with extension programs, and the whole range of things. My personal experience working with him was limited, except one or two conferences where we participated. And from my limited experience, I can only say he was a noble man. He had a capacity to work with a range of people and bring consensus to things. I think that was a great, ability, and those are the kind of things, those are the kind of skills and capabilities we very much lack. It's a pleasure for me to speak a few words. Now, I'm in a dilemma. I am basically a soil scientist, but over the last 3 days, I think we have a lot of soil, so I'm really at a loss. What do I say? Because soil science is my, strength, and you have heard a lot, and I don't want to bore all of you more on soil science. But I thought I will spend next few minutes on what was summarized by the chairman in the last session. The last session, chairman summarized the entire session by saying that all of us, what we are looking forward is, what is the way forward? How do we move forward from here? We understand, the difficulties, we understand the flaws of the green revolution, we understand the farmer's plight, but then how do we move forward? Now, I only want to say is that the problems that we are facing today, we are not alone in this world to face this one. Others are also facing it. Whether they are farmers anywhere in the world, they are facing the same problems. Whether it's the US or other things, they are facing the same problems. They are also have been, only thing is, we started green revolution a little 40 years later than they did. They started everything in 1930s, mechanization, fertilizers, everything. About 30, 40 years earlier, we started it only in 60s. That is the difference. But they were already being faced of these problems in 60s. The problems that we are facing now in 2000. And the scientific community was not quiet. I remember in 70s when we used to read the papers, because normally the trend would be to follow some paper, written outside and to follow that in the research. Every time they would be talking of pollution. I still remember, the salinity laboratory in the US, that's the area that I used to work. They used to work on the effect of ozone on plants back in 1970s. So they were all the time looking at the climate change even at that time, because they had that foresight. They had already been, for example, EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency of the US, was first set up in 1970, 69 or so. In fact, the soil scientist was the first chairman of the EPA. So the problems are not faced only in India, they have been faced by India. And searches have always been going on how do you go forward from there, from what we have been doing. The few issues, for example, in going forward, the chairman of the last session raised a few 4 or 5 points. Number one, any go forward paradigm or approach has to be looked through the climate change lens. extremely important. Number two, are there international findings or other global state knowledge based on which we can go forward? Third, he said any future approach must be based on principles of agroecology. Fourth, he mentioned that should we not look into some of these international agencies like FAO, United Nations and other things, what are they recommending and doing it? Then he also mentioned that any future approach must give a lot of emphasis to soil biodiversity, soil biology. These are the 5 points of the summary. What I am going to say here is that discussing over the last, based on researches, over the last 60 years, a new paradigm, new approach is available. I also want to tell the people that even the Green Revolution was based on natural understanding of the natural principles. Science always draws from natural processes, understanding of the natural processes. The Green Revolution paradigm was led from a better understanding of the nutrient needs. Justice von Liebig, someone mentioned, at that time he said the 16 are the essential plant nutrients. And then followed the chain of other things and then the fertilizer availability. The second major natural paradigm was the observations of John Gregor Mendel on the plant breeding, that how, plant breeder, you can evolve new plants. Only these two researches formed the basis for, Green Revolution. As I said, we have exhausted. How do we go forward? In the past few decades, 2 or 3 researches help us move forward. Number 1 is tillage is not good for the soils. Soil plowing is not good. It is not good for climate change. It is not good for soil biology. It is not good for soil physics. It is not good for soil chemistry. If you don't till the land, it is better. You will all agree with me, we are following natural principles. What I am telling you that these principles are science-based, they are in accordance with the nature, and this is the way forward. No tillage. In nature, nobody does tillage. Tillage in the nature is done by the earthworms or the soil biology. Number 2, keep crop residues on the soil surface. If you keep residues on the soil surface, what happens? See, one of the key issues is in Indian agriculture, which we must understand, which is different than the whole world, is our monsoon agriculture. Monsoon agriculture is one of the biggest agents of soil degradation. The moment high rainfall intensity rains strike the soil, soil erodes. And once that soil erodes, it carries with it organic matter, as was said in the Ratanlal's, because carbon is a lighter fraction, it goes off, along with the silt and other particles. And this degradation must be stopped. I want to say it categorically, and I want to be part of any discussion. The present methods of soil conservation, including bunding, etc., have not worked, and they will not work. And they will not work. Keeping the residues on the soil surface then starts a process of decomposition gradually. Once the gradual decomposition, the soil, first thing to affect is the surface layer, the surface half a millimeter of the soil gets improved. The soil surface is the major limiting point for entry of water into the soil. If the surface of the soil is sealed, no amount of water rainfall will enter. The major problem with Indian agriculture today is not, fertilizer or water. It is the entry of water into the soil. If the water does not enter, how do you do it? Number two, once the residues are there, they gradually decompose, they improve the soil's capacity to take water. And once the water goes inside, it checks evaporation. 30 to 40% of the water that we apply is lost by evaporation. And to check those losses, 30 to 40%, if the soil surface is covered, it will check the losses. Earlier researches till 80s mentioned that if you cover the soil only 1/3, then you can, reduce the evaporation by 70 to 80%. My current thinking is, if you can cover the soils completely, it is much better, apart from a range of other benefits that it gives. Now, this I am saying, what I am saying is, these are embedded in two words, which we call as conservation agriculture. Three principles: don't till the soil, keep the soils covered with residues, and third is have a diversity of vegetation and crops. Now, I want to be very clear and want to re-emphasize, these are not technologies. These are just a bare statement of principles of science. These are principles of science which are sound, scientifically proven, and universally valid. If you have a variety of crops, you will have a variety of soil biology. If you have a surface covered, if you start improving soil from the surface 1 millimeter, gradually you will, go down, improving day by day. And we must understand that soil degradation has occurred over thousands of years. And India is an ancient country, and we have been plowing the land from, please imagine the entire country in the months of April, May and June is plowed. Every farmer plows the land in the months of May and June. What does it do? Once you not imagine what the costs involved, but the soil is subjected to erosion. The plowed soil hai, it will be lost as erosion by both by water and by wind. So those are the days where you have a lot of winds all around. Now, these three principles, when applied together, and if we move together at the farmer, number three, this is an approach. This is an integrated approach. It involves both integrated nutrient management, it involves both integrated pest management. It is also the way to go towards agroecological agriculture. The way to start with agroecological agriculture is no tilling, keep the residues. I can cite examples after examples. What happens is, perspectives may differ. I was working with a few farmers in Nagpur, and as usual, I started, we have the, citrus trees. So as usual, I told them, why don't you grow some, sesbania, and then make it a cover and leave it with them. The two farmers, after discussing, with themselves, they said, हम साहब करेंगे. after क्यों करोगे भाई he said that इसमें जो कीड़ा लग रहा है, in the fruit, there is a fruit fly or something, it will not go and sit on the tree or on the fruit, it will go and sit on the part below. That was his perspective of a conservation agriculture. I was, thinking in my own mind, water conservation, this, but he had a different, approach to this one. I was talking to a been doing some experiment in Nisar with the farmers, and again, as I said, executing this one, asked him if I could do it, he was growing tomatoes and so forth. Again, I said, you use less water, you do this one. After 2 days, he said, sir, ये चलेगा. मैंने कहा क्यों चलेगा? कहता है इससे जो फ्रूट्स हैं उसके टोमेटो के वो ज़मीन के साथ नहीं लगेंगे, इसलिए वो टमाटर ख़राब नहीं होगा. His perspective was different, but what I am saying is conservation agriculture is a way to solve a problem. Whatever problem, translate principles of conservation agriculture to attack this problem. If water conservation is a problem, maybe this one. If, for example, nutrients, if this is a way to reduce the nutrient use because of return of the organic matter. It's a way to reduce the use of pesticide and maybe ultimately eliminate. So we are, from what we are saying is a downward spiral, which we have entered, in the resource degradation. We will start, and once we start conservation agriculture, we will start with an upward spiral. It will take some time before the spiral goes out. It has taken 1,000 years to come down. It will take another 10, 15 years to go down. But let me make it clear, as far as the world is today, this is the paradigm. This is the approach which is being promoted by FAO. This is the approach being by all international. This is based on solid, rock solid research over globally in the area of soil tillage, biology and so forth. I am not saying we are finished. I am saying that in the 60s we had only 2 approaches, fertilizer, new variety. But the next 50 years were spent how much fertilizer to which crop, at what time, which variety, time of sowing and so forth. This process has to start with conservation agriculture. It is not a technology, it's an approach, but then it has to be translated into technologies which are location specific, depending on how much is the residues, depending on what soil, depending on what is the rainfall, depending on what the farmer. What we are saying is that the approach of green revolution, which was largely inputs based, has to change to a resource based approach. What do we mean by resource based approach? That means to understand what are the resources with the farmers, what are the soils, what are the water resources, what are the climatic resources, all the resources, what are the natural resources. Number 2, how he is using them at present. You must understand, the scientists must understand how the resources are being used. Are they being used in a sustainable manner? Are they being used in unsustainable manner? And then, what are the opportunities to use these resources in a more sustainable way? And it is this that it will help us, move. Principles of conservation will help move out. I must also tell that ultimately, farmer is a decision maker. What to grow, where to grow, how much to grow, which field to grow, it is his decision. I can't help it. But what is necessary is to use the word empower him to take that decision a little more rationally. And what is that? How is he helped to take decisions more rationally? Is not through technologies, but through understanding the principles. If he understands, I can tell you, for example, 80% of the farmers, if I tell them don't till, they don't agree for the first time. But then so do 80% of the scientists, 90% of the scientists don't agree. Because we have a mindset. The mindset is we must till the land. And even today somebody will tell me that, water is absorbed more by a tilled land than by untilled land. Please go and try. A untilled land absorbs water more than a tilled land. A tilled land has more erosion, more surface flows than the untilled land. Also, please understand what the biggest damage that we are doing, Now, major researches have been carried out over the last 60 years in the area of how water moves into the soil. And one of the major findings of those how water moves in the soil is that water moves preferentially through the larger and the smaller pores. There are big pores, there are small pores, and so forth. Once you till the land, you destroy all pores. You destroy the continuity of pores. If you don't till the land, you maintain the continuity of the pores. Once you add water, after what happens is if there is a root will die and create a pore. If that pore is continuous, water will go inside. But if you have tilled the land, some water will seemingly seems to have gone in, but then the rest will be 80% will outflow. So no tillage is a better way to conserve water, keeping residues on the surface, and then the variety of cropping systems will help in building soil biology and so forth. This approach translates, number two, an important point which is here. This approach cannot be tried and experimented in the laboratories or experimental fields. This is a piece of research that must be carried out working with the farmers on their fields, with building their understanding of why we want to do, how we want to do. Because it is a holistic approach. It's an approach which integrates nutrient management, soil management, it integrates everything. And farmer is the best person to work when the holistic management is, is concerned. So, yes, I am not saying disciplinary research will not be carried out. Lot of microbiology research will have to be carried out. Lot of nutrient management transformations, chemistry will have to be carried out. Physics will have to be carried out. But what has been missing till today is the holistic synthesis approach where you can work with the farmer. Farmer, if I talk to the farmer on these three principles, let me tell you, on having crop rotations and multiple crops, he has no problem. He is already doing it. Tillage, he takes 3-4 days sitting. Crop residues, it only requires 1 day sitting. And but this is not a ready-made technology. The moment you go to the farm, you are going to start with a host of problems from day one. First thing is, how do you put a seed into a untilled soil? Yes, some research has been done, some things are working, some things are not working. But it has to become a starting point for research and development. It is here that the scientists and the farmers have to engage in the process of research and development at the field, while on the one hand, it will give a feedback to the government for a larger programs. On the other hand, it will give a feedback to the scientific organizations, what is working, what is not working. So this overall paradigm, let me tell you, about 4 days back, not 4 days back, a couple of months back, Obama has passed a US national soil policy on this one. And this is an important one. European Union, which is a union of how many European countries, for the last 3 years they are trying to have a soil policy in place. First they rejected, but then now again a campaign is on for signatures and so forth to push the European Union into it. And this is an important part, integral part of all these policy documents. There will be others. There will be a lot of other things to be done, but this, to me, provides a beginning of an alternate approach towards the alternate paradigm. If not this one, how? This is the way forward. The question is not whether it's right or wrong. Question is, how do you make it successful? This is the globally, more than 120 million hectares are globally under zero till there are farmers everywhere where the farmers have not tilled their land for 20 years. And you can find hundreds of videos, from all countries on how the farmers for 23 years have not tilled their lands. So I believe what I am saying is not first to be understood is the scientists. And then unless you have conviction, we have all conviction of that, things will not move forward. Scientists don't have conviction. Farmers, it will be relatively easier to build up, conviction. But then we have to have a new branch of scientists. For example, see, there are many things in the system that I don't want to talk about here. For example, ICR system has still not decided that research is their job. Extension is not their job. Research is their job, but this is research. Working with the farmers is a research. It's a research into the system, or whole system research. So, unfortunately, we are used to have a paradigm of transfer of technology. Transfer means यहाँ से transfer जाके करना है. But here it's a working with and evolving a technology. And I think these are some of the three things which I believe are available on the table globally. For example, we have to find something like this one and combine it with programs like 4 per 1000. And then over the next 10 years, also let me tell you, we are a part of the climate change convention. We are part of the various agreements. We have to explain where have we stored carbon. We will have to monitor our soil organic matter content. Otherwise, people will not believe us. So this approach has the lens of climate change. It has the lens of soil biology. It has the lens of climate change with low cost, reduced use of renewable inputs, petrol and so forth, and at the same time not only increase productivity, also enhance what we call now the soil's functions. What we are taking is productivity, increasing production is only one of the functions that soils performs. There are other range of functions which the soil perform, and if we have to take care of this one, then this is the kind of approach. Friends, I thought I will just make a brief talk on this one. I thought this will be a tribute also to the memory of Dr. Sanghi, who is a great friend and a good. Thank you very much.